Welcome to my channel Nose Explained, and today I am here to explain the first chapter of Political Science Class 10 Indian Democracy from the SEBA board. I have tried my level best to jot down all the important points in the chapter so that you will be helped to learn easily and you don't feel that the subject is hard. So do like, comment, share and subscribe my channel, and also press the bell icon so that you get the updates regularly. India. It was dominated by the Britons for nearly 2 centuries, 1757 to 1947. We all know that all the Indians were dominated and tortured by the Britons for nearly 2 centuries, starting approximately from 1757 to 1947. It is 1947 because on 15th August 1947 we became independent and India became the biggest democratic country. Now, before gaining independence in 1947, something else had happened. In 1945, general election was held in England in July 1945. The Labour Party came to power and took the decision to declare India independent. So, as we have our own parties in India like the Congress Party or the BJP Party or any other parties, so also in England there were many parties. Among the many parties, Labour Party was one, and it came to power after the election, and it finally took the decision that it would declare India independent. And the party thought about the necessity of a constitution. Cabinet Mission. It is a unit of Britain's cabinet ministers. The British government sent a cabinet mission to India in 1946 to create a congenial environment and to prepare for framing a new constitution. So, as we have read that the Labour Party had won after the election, so they thought of declaring India as independent, and in order to declare it independent, it has to provide a constitution. It thought of the idea. So, a cabinet mission was sent to India so that they can help us in making a good constitution. So, what is a cabinet mission? It is actually a unit where the Britain's cabinet ministers were there, and these ministers together they form a cabinet mission. So the cabinet mission was sent to India in March 1946. Remember, in 1945 they thought of taking the idea of making a constitution and declaring India as independent, and March 1946 they had finally sent the cabinet mission. Why was it sent? To create a congenial environment and to prepare for framing a new constitution. So, what were the various preparations made for framing a new constitution? First of all, a meeting was held on 9th December 1946. Which was actually presided by a senior member, and the name was Dr. Sachidananda Sinha. After the meeting, a decision was made that a constitutional assembly should be formed, because in this assembly only the members who would be thinking or taking the decisions of making a constitution would be there. That's why it was called as Constitutional Assembly, means all the members who were to make the constitution. And the head of this Constitutional Assembly was Dr. Rajendra Prasad, because he became the permanent president of the Constituent Assembly. Altogether, 11 sittings were held. That means before completing the constitution, they sat altogether 11 times. A drafting committee was constituted on 29 August 1947. That means a drafting committee was formed because before finally producing a work, they need to roughly do the work somewhere. And constitution is not a small book, but it was a very huge book where it was written for the whole country, so that work cannot be done by one person alone. So that's why a committee was made where some members were doing the works of roughly writing. So it was finally formed on 29 August 1947, and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was appointed as the chairman of the drafting committee. And the committee constituted with 7 specialists from divergent fields. From divergent fields in the sense so that not only the rich or the poor, not only the upper class or the low class, but all the people belonging to different fields were involved there, so that each and every point, everyone belonging to different communities can gather and write down there, by keeping in mind the diversity that we are living in. The draft was prepared after 3 years of hard work. So in your book it is just simply written as 3 years, but actually it took 2 years, 11 months and 17 days. So it is almost 3 years. And it was handed to President Dr. Rajendra Prasad on 26th November 1949. Now, decision was to be taken by the President Dr. Rajendra Prasad about the places that needed to be checked, or the places that needs more focus or attention. And in this way, slowly and gradually, Constitution finally came into force on 26th January 1950. The members of the drafting committee: Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who was the chairman obviously, Mr. N. Gopalaswamy Iyengar, Mr. Allade Krishnaswamy Iyer, Mr. K. M. Munshi, Mr. Syed Mohammad Sadullah, Mr. N. Madhava Rao, and Mr. D. P. Khaitan. So remember, the first thing, the chairman will always be remembered. The next, just try to remember the second and the third one, like Gopala Swami. So when Gopal was small, his name would be firstly mentioned, that when he was small he was called as Gopala, but when he became big he was known as Krishna. So Gopala Swami, Krishna Swami, and later the fourth, fifth and sixth you will see M, the 3 M's or M cube. It will be Munshi, Muhammad, Madhava. So remember in that way, so that you will remember the things, the names properly. And last one would be DP Khaitan. Everyone we know what's the meaning of DP, and we used to keep in the WhatsApp. We all know about this, no need to say. So remember in that way: Chairman Gopala Swami, Krishna Swami, Munshi, Muhammad, Madhava, and last DP. So remember these things and it will be easy for you to remember. How was India governed without a constitution after independence? So we all know that we got independence on 15th August 1947, and the constitution was handed over to the president on 26th November 1949, and it finally came into force on 26th January 1950. So from 1947 to the time period of 1950, how was India ruled? So here is the answer. India was governed according to the provisions of the Government of India Act 1935 after independence, but before obtaining a constitution. Ideals of the Constitution. Preamble. The preamble is written in the very first page, so it is the introduction of the Constitution. Here the ideals, objectives and philosophy are well described. That is why it is considered as the soul, the conscience, the threshold and the keys of Indian Constitution. The preamble begins with "We the people of India," which bears certain meaning. It is written "We the people of India" because it is only for us that the Constitution was made. It is for us that the rules and the regulations, all the things were written, because it was during the British rule that we were not ruled by the Indians or by Indian leaders. Rather, we were ruled by the Britons, who tortured us and dominated us. So finally we got independence and we had our own constitution, which was made only for us. The second point, since Indians have the actual authority to the constitution, they are the main force behind the making of the Indian constitution. So yes, that's why it's written as we the people of India. The third point, the makers of the constitution paid due attention to manifest every aspect of rich ancient Indian culture and civilization. Yes, the makers of the Indian constitution had to think about the divergent India where we are living, because India does not belong to any one community. It is a diverse land where all different types of people live together. That's why it paid attention to manifest each and every aspect of the rich ancient Indian culture and civilization. The significant words in the preamble are sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, and republic. Let us know more about the significant words briefly. The first is sovereign. Why is India known as sovereign country? India is known so because it has the only absolute and the supreme power over the country. It has an independent authority after the Britain's rule, because during the British rule they were not independent and we did not enjoy supreme or absolute power, but only after independence we enjoy all the things. The next is socialist. Why do we call it socialist? The word was first of all not included in the beginning, but was later included or incorporated through the 42nd Constitutional Amendment in 1976. So, in the very beginning, the word socialist was not added, but later, through the 42nd Constitutional Amendment, it was included. So, what is the meaning of Constitutional Amendment? When the great leaders think that the Constitution should be, or the lines of some part of the Constitution should be changed, so they make an amendment, they make a change, and according to the numbers, they place it. So when the word socialist was added, it was the 42nd Constitutional Amendment, and it took place in the year 1976. It also signifies equality on the basis of income, status, and standard of living. So we can see here that it is socialist, the word socialist. So socialist society, that means in the society everyone or all the people should be living in equality on the basis of income, whether they are rich or poor, according to the standard and status of living. So everyone are equal, no one is high or no one is low. There would be equal distribution of national income and mixed economy. So here each and every people are equal, and based on the income, again there would be no gender discrimination, there would be no class discrimination, and mixed economy in the sense it is a free market where both the government and the private sectors can invest their money. There would be no capitalist class guiding the country's economy. Capitalist class in the sense where only one particular individual or some particular individuals practice their work and they dominate the market. So here in India it is not dominated by any particular capitalist class, since it is a mixed economy. The next significant word is secular. All the religions are equal and there shall be no discrimination among the religions. Yes, we all know that India is a country where all religions work equally, practice their faith equally, and no one is there to forbid us. No special interest or concessions would be made for any particular religion. Yes, there will be no partiality on the basis of religion. No community or no religion will be given due interest or special interest. This word was again included or incorporated in the preamble by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment. Yes, last time I told you the word socialist was included, so this time again secular was also included by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment. The next is democratic. India has the largest democracy in the world. It is governed by the elected representatives of the people. Abraham Lincoln once said, democracy is of the people, by the people, and for the people. Yes, India is the largest democracy in the whole world. It is governed or it is ruled by the elected representatives of the people. Why elected representatives? Because we are the people who cast our valuable votes, and then only the selected candidates get elected and they start ruling the country. Abraham Lincoln was a famous person who once said that democracy is such a form of government that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. Democracy is of the people because it is made by the people, it is of the people, it is the thing belongs to the people. That's why it is of the people. By the people because it is elected, the leaders are elected by the people. And for the people, now why are the people elected, why are the representatives selected, and why they start ruling us? For us only, for our good. So that's why it is for the people. Democracy is of the people, by the people, and for the people. And remember, this statement was given by the famous person Abraham Lincoln. The last significant word in the preamble would be republic. Now, why do we say India is a republic country? Remember this thing. India is not a private property. It is a public property where the head of the state, that is the president, is elected by the people, and the post of the head is not hereditary, nor a person selected by someone. So yes, India is a country where the head of the state, that is the president, is elected by the people. He is not elected by some particular person, he is elected by every one of us. So we equally cast our vote and we elected the person. So that means what? India is not a private property, it is a public property. So the Indians will establish justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity in the country. So apart from all these significant words, India will also establish justice, where we the people live equally and we get justice. Liberty means we live in freedom, where no one will dominate us or will torture us. Equality, again, everyone should be living in equality. There would be no discrimination. And fraternity in the country, that means, and brotherhood. Everyone would be brothers and sisters and work in the country very well. Thus, socialist, secular, and unity were included in the preamble through the 42nd Constitutional Amendment on 18th December 1976. Remember the last point clearly. The three words socialist, secular, and unity, it was amended through which amendment? It was 42nd Constitutional Amendment, and the date would be 18 December 1976. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. He put forward a few objective resolutions at the Constituent Assembly on 13 December 1946. So, we all know that Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was the first Prime Minister of India. So, he put forward a few objective resolutions so that it would be added in the Constituent Assembly. And he told about the resolutions on 13 December 1946. The resolutions was finally accepted by everyone on 22nd January 1947. What were the various objective resolutions that were given by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru? The first point is, the Constituent Assembly is determined to declare India as independent, sovereign republic, though the word independent was later removed. So the first point is that this assembly, they should be very much determined to declare India as independent, sovereign, and republic. But later it was determined to declare India as sovereign and republic, because independence was later removed. The second point would be a union of states shall be constituted with the British ruled Indian territory. That means long time back the Britons ruled India, and at that time there were some provinces that were ruled by the Britons, and there were some princely states that were ruled by the kings, or we can also say by the Indian kings. So here it says that a union of states shall be constituted with the British ruled Indian territory. All the provinces that were ruled by the Britons, they will form a union of states. And it also said that the erstwhile princely kingdoms that were ruled by the Indian kings, willing to join the Indian territory. That means in the union of states, if the princely states also wants to join as Indian territory, they can also join. I hope the point is clear. That means provinces would be the states ruled by the Britons. Princely states, remember prince means kings, so princely states were ruled by the Indian kings. So they took the decision that all the provinces will be termed as union of states. They also said that if the princely states also want to join the Indian territory, then they can join it. The third point, that is social, economic and political justice, equality, religious liberty, freedom of expressing thought and opinion of the Indian people will be duly recognized. Social in the field, or we can also say referring to society, economic referring to money, and political justice, that means administrative justice, should be obtained. Equality, everyone should be equal. Religious liberty, everyone should be given the freedom to practice their own religions, their own culture and tradition. Freedom of expressing thought and opinion of the Indian people will be duly recognized. That means all the people should be given the liberty to express their own viewpoints and opinions, and all these should be given due attention. There shall be measures to safeguard the interest of the scheduled caste, the scheduled tribe, backward classes and the minority people of India. So not only the upper caste but even the lower caste like the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, backward classes, the minority people should be safeguarded by looking after their needs, and many facilities and advantages should also be given to them. It's not that they will be ignored. The fifth point, importance shall be given to safeguard the freedom, the sovereignty and the integrity of the country. So we all know that India is a sovereign country. That means, what did I say earlier? What was the meaning of sovereign? It means the supreme. India is a supreme and absolute power. It enjoys supreme and absolute power. So yes, all these things should be safeguarded, and the unity and integrity should be maintained so that no one, no outsider or no foreign country can come and dominate us once again like the Britons did earlier. The sixth resolution is India shall extend full cooperation for the sake of cordial international relations, world peace and welfare of the people. So India will not be selfish enough to look only after its own needs. So it will also extend full cooperation for international peace and security. It will also look after the international countries if they are in any need. And it will look after the world peace. It will try to maintain the peace and welfare of the people. The people of India shall be the source of all powers. The government of the sovereign state and its constituent parts shall obtain the power from the people. So yes, as said earlier, India is a sovereign country, but it will obtain its power only from the people. If one party does not work properly, we the people have the full right to remove the party and select the other party who will really work for us, who will really take care about everyone in the society belonging to different fields and look after the benefits and welfare of the people. The eighth point, the indigenous princely states desiring to join the Indian Union shall enjoy the status of the constituent provinces through self-governance and the residuary powers. As told earlier, that a union of states was formed by the Indians because the states were actually ruled by the Britons, and it was also said that if the princely states, that means ruled by the kings, if they want to join their territory with the Indian territory, it will be allowed. So here it's mentioned that the indigenous princely states, that means ruled by the kings, desiring to join the Indian Union shall enjoy the status of its constituent provinces. So even if they join here, they will also be able to enjoy the status of the constituent provinces. The things that are written in the constitution, they can even enjoy that one. The only thing is that one, that they will be self-governed with their own residuary powers. There is no force, and no one is forcing them to join the Indian territory. It is, if they will, they can. Everyone in the assembly believed that the given objective resolutions manifested the main basis giving due importance to the ideas, legacy of the thousands of years old Indian culture and civilization. So everyone, they really believe that everyone in the constituent assembly, they really liked the resolutions that were actually given by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, because it covered all the things about the divergent India. It gave importance to the ideas, the legacy of the Indian culture and civilizations, the rich Indian heritage. So these were really manifested, and it was added finally in the constitution. So here comes the end of the first part, and do watch the second part in the next video. Your likes and subscription keeps me really motivated, and I really feel that my hard work is valued. Till then, stay safe and healthy.